Hello, this is going to be a review of the new movie Friendship, which is written and directed by Andrew DeYoung, starring Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd, and is one of my most anticipated movies of the entire year. I love Tim Robinson. I think he is one of the funniest people in the whole world. His Netflix show, I Think You Should Leave, is absolutely hilarious. And this is a film that very much plays to Tim Robinson's strengths. It's a movie that is made for him in mind as the lead performance. I was also just excited to watch a comedy in the theaters. I think comedy movies have not really been that great lately, and have kind of been usurped by television or even like social media like YouTube and TikTok. Like people go to different mediums to get comedy, and as a result, comedy films have sort of stagnated. So I was excited to see someone like Tim Robinson try his hand at being a movie star in a comedic movie, I guess. And just to cut to the chase, I think that he absolutely nailed it. This is one of the best movies of the year so far, and is certainly one of the funniest. It's probably one of the funniest movies of the past several years. A lot of that has to do with Tim Robinson as well as Paul Rudd, who is doing a great job, kind of in a thankless role here. He's playing like a straight man to Tim Robinson's just absolutely manic performance, and I think he's doing a great job. Has a couple of really great jokes and just has really great chemistry with Robinson, which I think is very important for the narrative to work, which is, by the way, Tim Robinson playing this guy named Craig, who becomes friends with his neighbor named Austin, but then he like does some weird stuff, and Austin's like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. And then Craig kind of goes crazy, kind of in a spiral. But you have to buy that like immediate connection, that immediate friendship between these two to work. And Paul Rudd is just like super charming and charismatic and magnetic. So you buy that Craig would just like be immediately infatuated with him in almost like a, I don't want to say like homoerotic sort of way, but like he is like sort of in love with him in a lot of regards, which is one of the examples of this film feeling kind of like Fight Club in a sense, in that it's like Paul Rudd as this ideal man and Craig, Tim Robinson's character, as like this strange loser. There's like an Edward Norton, Brad Pitt sort of dynamic here. It also reminds me of Taxi Driver in a sense, which is a weird comparison, but both films that deal with male loneliness, which is what this movie is really getting at. But it isn't like, thematically dense. It is mainly just trying to be funny. It's just using male loneliness, and like a specific kind of awkward dude to be really, really funny. And Tim Robinson is really great at playing that specific kind of awkward dude. I think this is like a comedic powerhouse sort of performance from Robinson. Even like small throwaway lines, one-liners that feel like they would be light chuckles end up being like some of the funniest parts of the movie, just because the way he delivers lines is just so funny. A lot of scenes here just feel like I Think You Should Leave sketches. This does kind of feel like an extended I Think You Should Leave episode, but in the best way possible. I think sometimes movies from comedians or comedians in general have like a hit or miss nature to them. And there are some jokes that miss here. It isn't a perfect movie, but it is impressive just how many laughs there are per minute. I laughed like maybe 2 or 3 times every minute. It was just an incredibly funny movie that also kept ramping up in its humor and getting like more and more absurd. But there's also a heart here, and Robinson gets to the root of that in his performance as well. Typically, he's playing characters that are similar to this, but they're characters that don't get a lot of screen time, because I Think You Should Leave is a sketch show, so it's like 3 minutes with this character. But here he gets to be Craig for like an hour and a half, and so you find yourself empathizing with him in a way that is kind of surprising, because he's just a deeply unlikable person. He's just like really uncomfortable to watch on screen. But Robinson endears him with this like sense of desperation to like be loved and admired that does make him very easy to connect to, very easy to empathize to. And there's a couple of moments where I think Robinson actually gets a little bit serious in this performance. Obviously, they're fleeting and they're very short, because this movie is largely concerned with just being the funniest thing ever. But Robinson has a specific scene where he's on the phone that I think is like a really, really great dramatic performance. And it's only for about like 10 seconds, but I just didn't know he had something like that in him. And it does speak to the fact that Robinson's style of comedy, which is very, very specific, is able to translate from sketch show into full-length movie which gets me really excited for what he might go on to do in the future. The other performances here, the supporting roles are really great. I mentioned Paul Rudd. Kate Mara is also great as Tim Robinson's wife. There's also just small like bit players who have a couple of lines that are really, really funny. There's this dude he meets at the phone place that I think is one of the funniest characters in the entire movie. And I don't know, it just kept coming up with really funny scenarios to put this character in. Every single role really like nailed the moment. Connor O'Malley, who is in I Think You Should Leave quite frequently, was in this movie for just a couple scenes, but is just absolutely hilarious in it as well. It's also just really refreshing to watch a comedy that is just trying to be funny and not trying to be much else. It's very like low stakes and small scale. Every time that an R-rated comedy comes out, people like to equate it to like the Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen films of the 2000s. And I think this does have some of that, but it's also a lot tighter. A lot of those Apatow and Rogen films are very improvisational, and they're just like put a bunch of funny people in a room and let them see if they can be funny. And I don't think that's what this film is. Andrew DeYoung, the writer and director, feels like he has a distinct vision for this movie, and there are moments where I think Robinson and Rudd, to an extent, are given room to improvise a little bit, but it's also like a very tight 90-minute movie that is always like building itself up to a specific conclusion and has like a very exact structure to it. So in that sense, it deviates from like the R-rated Apatow films that it feels like it is going to be inevitably compared to. It also has a bit more visual flair to it than those films do. There's a trip sequence that is noticeably short for like comedic effect that I think has a couple of very creative shots in it as well, and is just a little bit more, I don't want to say artsy, but is like a little bit more indie feeling than most big budget comedies, probably because this isn't a big budget comedy. But the score I thought was really great. It was very like goofy, but also like had a bit of ominousness to it. It was like playing with genre a little bit. There's some moments where it is kind of like a straight up horror movie, and the cinematography isn't anything incredible, but I do think it's pretty solid. There are some really great shots in here, even if that is not like the primary focus of the film. It's still finding ways to be shot very creatively. I don't have a lot of complaints about this movie. I think there are some jokes that just don't really hit for me, but it's like 75 to 80% of the jokes are really, really working, and there's like, I don't know, 10 jokes a minute, so it ends up evening out to be like one of the funniest movies really of the past decade. I do think it might just be because I'm so into what Tim Robinson does as a comedian that I really love this movie, but I also think there is like, it's just an objectively really, really funny movie. So I think a lot of people will really, really like this. I hope it's kind of a big hit because I would love to see Robinson get to be in movies more. Obviously, I like him and I think you should leave, but it would be cool to see him in this different medium a bit more. But yeah, I think this was really great. One of the best movies of the year. I would give this a 4 out of 5. Just a really, really great time. Really, really funny. I feel like I've said that a lot in this review, but it is. It's just absolutely hilarious. And yeah, that's all I got. I think this comes out like wide release in a couple of weeks, so yeah, go watch it because it's really funny. Next week I will be reviewing Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, and then at some point in the next week or so I will be doing a Mission Impossible ranked video, which I've been preparing for, and I got a lot of things to say about those movies. So yeah, watch that, I guess, when it comes out. And that's all I got. So yeah, goodbye.